الحمد لله الصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وبعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قال الله تعالى في القرآن المجيد والفرقان الحميد وأيوب إذ نادى ربه أني مسني الضر وأنت أرحم الراحمين صدق الله العظيم. وقال الله تعالى في شان حق حبيبه مخبرا وآمرا إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا ومولانا محمد وبارك وسلم وسلم عليه. All praise belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Infinite peace and salutations be upon all of the prophets and messengers from Adam alayhisalaam and up to and including our liege Lord and Master Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So we're continuing our talks on the Anbiya alayhisalam mentioned in the Quran. As you know, there was approximately 124,000 prophets sent by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Of them, only 25 are mentioned by name in the Quran. Allah Almighty tells us, some of them I have told you about and others I haven't. One of the prophets that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned in the Quran a few number of times is Hazrat Ayyub alayhisalaam. Not as well known as some of the other prophets and messengers. Like if you said to somebody, name me some prophets and messengers, most people would get Musa alayhisalaam, Isa alayhisalaam, Ibrahim alayhisalaam. Ayyub alayhisalaam, maybe not. Okay, because it's less mentioned and less frequently known. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, wa Ayyuba, and remember Ayyub. إِذْ نَادَى رَبَّهُ أَنِّي مَسَّنِيَ الضُّرُّ. Ayyub alayhisalaam was a prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he was a descendant of Hazrat Ishaq alayhi salam. So Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam through Hazrat Ishaq alayhi salam. And Hazrat Ayyub alayhi salam was a prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he was sent to Syria, and in particular an area of Damascus. That was the area he was sent to as a prophet and messenger. Prophet rather. So here, all prophets have been sent to people from a certain locality, whereas our Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam has been sent for the entire earth, the entire world. When we use the word world, it means earth. Yeah, in that sense. So if somebody wants to accept Islam in America, in South America, North America, in Canada, Indonesia, Malaysia, everybody has to follow our Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Whereas in the past you have, a particular prophet in a particular area. For example, you have Shuaib al-Islam in Madian. People in Madian need to follow him. You have Musa al-Islam in Egypt. People of Egypt need to follow him. Here, our Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam's prophethood and messengership is universal. So Allah Almighty says, remember Ayyub when he called his Lord that distress has touched me. And you are the most merciful of the merciful. Arhamur Rahimin. One of the things scholars mention here regarding Ayyub alayhi salam is Ayyub alayhi salam had 7 sons. He had 7 daughters. He had countless animals. He had buildings. He had wealth. And they mention that he was extremely handsome as well. Ayyub alayhi salam was. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sometimes tests you by giving you and sometimes tests you by taking away. I've mentioned previously, like with Sulaiman alayhi salam and Dawood alayhi salam, when Allah gives you a lot, that's not something to be extremely ecstatic about. That's something to be thinking, I best be careful because I see what Allah has given me as a test. What do I do with it? How do I behave when I've got more than what I need? And sometimes Allah Almighty tests you by taking away. The one who gives can take away as well. So the scholars mention that Ayyub alayhi salam, Allah Almighty caused all his children to die. Caused all his buildings to fall. Caused all of his animals to perish. The harvest he had ruined. Everything he had gone. And Ayyub alayhi salam himself became ill. Now some scholars mention that he was ill with an illness which meant that he had like worms coming out of his body. But then I've read from scholars that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not afflict his prophets with that kind of a humiliating type of illness. Yeah, he was ill, no problem. But to describe without proper certainty the kind of illness he had, and we can say he was ill. But the reason why I mentioned this is because I've been to masajid before and they'll say, oh, he had kire coming out of him, etc. But scholars have said that Allah Almighty would not give his prophets such a illness where people are repulsed from him. Why? Because he's the prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they say he was ill and everybody left him. You know, when you have money, you have buildings, you have children, you have crops, everybody's around you. Everybody's calling you. Everybody wants to be around you because you have something they could potentially benefit from. But then if you have nothing left, people leave you. Only those sincere people who are with you for the sake of you, not for the sake of your belongings or your reputation or whatever. So everybody left him except his wife. His wife stood by him. In sickness and in health. They take their vows, don't they? That in sickness I'm with you and in health I'm with you. There's something I read once. There was a wife saying to the husband that if you won the lottery, would you still love me? They're non-Muslim, by the way. Galji baniye. If you won the lottery, would you still love me? He said, yes, I would still love you, but I would also miss you as well. Yes, meaning as soon as if I hit the lottery, I'm leaving you. So the idea is to be standing by your spouse in good times and in bad times, because the vows that we take, the nikah that we have, this is lifetime commitment to your spouse. Allah Almighty mentioned, hunna libasul lakum wa antum libasul lahun. We're libas for each other. Right? You're there to protect each other, look after each other, cover each other up, close to each other. So Allah Almighty mentions this, that he was in distress and he called out to Allah and saying, you're the most merciful of the merciful ones. Scholars of Tafsir mention that this test lasted 7 years. I've even read that it lasted 80 something years, 70 something years. The test that Ayyub alayhisalaam was put through, right? But some scholars mention 7 years he was put through this test. And then he offered this dua of prayer saying, oh Allah, I've been afflicted and you're the most merciful of the merciful ones, meaning relieve me of this difficulty that I am now facing and going through. Scholars then mention that when we make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we should use his attributes to appeal to him. So if you want Allah to show you mercy, then call him the one who shows mercy. If you want Allah to provide you sustenance, then call out to him, say Ar-Razaq, the one who provides rizq. So then you say, oh Allah, the one who provides rizq, the one who sustains and maintains and cherishes, grant me such and such thing. So depending on what your need is, you then appeal to that particular attribute of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For example, you're seeking justice, you'll say, Ya ahkam al-hakimin, oh the one who is most just of the just ones, provide me with justice. So you're appealing to the relevant attribute of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the dua. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَاسْتَجَبْنَا لَهُ فَكَشَفْنَا مَا بِهِ. Then we responded to him. Ayyub al-Islam made dua. He said, Allah Almighty, we responded to him and we removed the distress which he had. Because who's the only one who can remove the distress? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah's tested him. Allah then removed his distress from him. And Allah Almighty says, and we gave him his family. Scholars of Tafsir mention that the people who died, Allah brought back to life and said, here's back everything that you lost. You lost your children, here they are back. You lost your animals, here you go. And I'll give you more on top of that. Why? Because he was someone who was grateful in tough times, and he was someone who was grateful in comfortable times. We should also, it doesn't take long for a person's situation to change. So we should always be grateful in easy times and in difficult times, and always remember the ones who are less fortunate than us, because there are plenty of them out there. Regardless of how difficult our situation may become, there are still so many out there which are in more of a difficult situation than us. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, we gave him his family, and along with them, we gave him more. We like the like thereof as mercy from us. And an admonition to the devotees, was zikra lil abidin, right? That we've given him more than what he lost. What's mentioned regarding Ayyub alayhi salam is that he became ill, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala inspired him to hit his heel on the ground. He hit his heel on the ground and water gushed forth. So this didn't only happen with Ismail alayhisalaam near the Kaaba Sharif. Ayyub alayhisalaam as well, he's hit the ground with his foot, and the blessings of the foot hitting the ground has caused water to spring forth. He's drunk that water, he's bathed from that water, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given him cure by means of the water. Who's the curer? Allah. What's the means? The water. That water was water of shifa. Zamzam water is also water of shifa as well. Who's the giver of shifa? Allah. But He gives you His shifa through means. What's the means? The water, right? Or someone might take some medicine. Who's the giver of shifa? Allah. Who the means? The doctor initially who prescribed the medicine. Then the medicine itself which you took. But who's the curer? Allah. If you take medicine, it may be that Allah does not choose to cure you. It's not the medicine, it's Allah. If He just chooses to cure you, again, it's the medicine that He's made as a means. Or He may cure you without you needing to take any medicine. Because these are just means, right, which are usually adopted. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that we responded to him and we removed the distress from him. Scholars of Tafsir say all the deceased children came back to life, and he was granted more children in addition to the children that he had. He was afflicted in this way. In Surah Sad, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala again mentions Ayyub alayhisalaam. He's mentioned around 4 times in the Quran. Allah Almighty says, وَاذْكُرْ عَبْدَنَا Ayyub. Remember Ayyub. إِذْ نَادَى رَبَّهُ أَنِّي مَسَّنِيَ الشَّيْطَانُ بِنُصْبٍ وَعَذَابٍ. And remember my devotee Ayyub, he called to his Lord that shaitan had afflicted me with weariness and oppression. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions regarding this, he then says, we said to him, strike your foot on the ground. Here is a cool stream for bathing and drinking. So the water that was mentioned here, baridun. Yeah. Al-ma'u baridun, for example, ma'un baridun is going to be cool water, cold water. So here, even now there is these health professionals who say that there's a benefit in having a cold shower, or benefit in having an ice bath is beneficial to the body, etc. I wouldn't dare personally, but we're not stopping them. It's a halal thing to do if you want to. I'd rather have a hot shower. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, Haza muqtasalun baridun wa sharab. Right? So this is not sharab, how what you think sharab is. This is saying sharab is in drinking water. In Arabic, sharab meaning drinking. So here is cool stream for bathing, bath in this water and drink from this water. And where did they start? From the foot of the Prophet touching the floor. The foot of Ismail alayhisalaam touching the floor. The foot of Ibrahim alayhisalaam become maqam Ibrahim. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed such blessings in the feet of his prophets. That to us it's a foot, but this is a blessed foot. This is not any old foot. This is a foot not like mine and yours. This is a foot that when it strikes the ground, water comes forth. This is a foot that touched the ground. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَاتَّخِذُوا مِن مَقَامِ إِبْرَاهِيمَ مُصَلَّى. Take the standing or the place where Ibrahim stood, make that your musalla, read namaz there. Because of the blessed. And then when we have the Nalain Sharif, the outline of the footprint of our Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam is sandal Mubarak. This is blessed. Because it's from the blessed sandal of our Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then, after saying this is water for you for bathing and drinking, Allah Almighty says that we bestowed him, his family, and many more with them, in addition as a mercy from us and as a reminder to the men of understanding. Then there are other verses as well regarding Ayyub alayhisalaam, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions further things. But the key thing and the key learning from Ayyub alayhisalaam's story mentioned in the Quran, and yesterday was a 1 hour nashist, and you all mashallah listened to me patiently. Today I will make a short one. So what the main thing regarding Ayyub alayhisalaam is, you should remember, this is a reminder to me and you, that we should remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in all times, in good times and in bad times. But in reality, for a Muslim, all times are good times. You just don't see the good in the time, at the time. Every time is good. If that situation leads to you bowing down to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Look, somebody may be afflicted with an illness, but that illness results in that person becoming a namaz reader. Somebody may be afflicted with the illness, but that makes means that person going to Hajj for the first time. The person may be ill, but then that person might then, as a result of that, be a regular reader of the Durood Sharif. So was that really a bad thing? Outwardly, maybe it seemed to be bad, but in reality, it was good. Allah Almighty tells us, وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِّنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْجُوءِ وَنَقْصٍ مِّنَ الْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَنفُسِ وَالثَّمَرَاتِ. All these things that Ayyub alayhisalaam has been tested with. Allah says, will cause loss of life, will cause fear, loss of crops, loss of business, loss of children. وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ. And glad tidings to the patient ones. Who are the patient ones? الَّذِينَ إِذَا أَصَابَتْهُمْ مُصِيبَةٌ. When a difficulty reaches them, قَالُوا إِنَّا لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ راجعون. They say, indeed from Allah we come, unto Him we shall return. They basically, the attitude is, if a difficulty reaches them or trouble reaches them or there's some loss occurs, they say, koi gal nahi. Why? Because we're not going to stay here forever. We're going to return back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then what does Allah Almighty say? أُولَٰئِكَ عَلَيْهِمْ صَلَوَاتٌ مِّن رَبِّهِمْ وَرَحْمَةٌ. Upon them is the peace of Allah and His mercy. Upon who? Upon the ones who are grateful and patient after they are tested. Everyone's tested in different ways. What separates people is who is grateful off the back of the test and who loses hope. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us all tawfiq and understanding. Wa akhiru da'wahum alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Allahumma salli ala sayyidina wa maulana Muhammadin wa ala ali sayyidina